I'm Dr. Amanda Philyaw Perez with the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture Cooperative Extension Service. So here at Extension, I lead the Food Systems and Food Safety team, and it's a pleasure to welcome Katie Dobbins, a recent graduate of the University of Arkansas with a Master's in Agricultural Education. So as part of Katie's thesis work, she researched the topic of small, urban, and sustainable farming in Arkansas. So I'm gonna let her provide the details of that work, but I really had the pleasure of serving on her thesis committee and am proud of the work that she's gonna present today. So I'm gonna turn it over to Katie and let her take it away. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Philyaw Perez. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, Small Farm Sustainability, Perspectives from Farmers and Agents. So first, I just want to start a little bit about explaining who I am and why I'm presenting today. I recently graduated with my Master of Science degree in Agricultural and Extension Education from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. While there, I researched small-scale diversified urban farming, but I didn't want to just look at the perspectives of producers. I also wanted to investigate the perspectives of the agents who work with producers in the state. The thesis is titled, On the Path to a Resilient Urban Food System in a Rural State, a Mixed Method Needs Assessment of Urban Producers and County Extension Agents in Arkansas. So why this study? The impetus for this study was based on initial anecdotal feedback that Cooperative Extension offered limited services to meet specific client needs regarding sustainable practices. During the interview process of my thesis, I came to understand that these farmers generally go elsewhere to find research and resources for their operations. Cooperative Extension does not have a strong presence with these farmers. I also realized through the study, however, that for local food system development, it's not just about urban or rural settings. For a thriving local food system, we have to look and understand the intersections and needs of both urban and rural producers and stakeholders. Although the farmer interviews in the study were concentrated in Northwest and Central Arkansas, the Survey of Agricultural Agents is a statewide study looking to determine the awareness, interactions, and experiences of agents with this type of farmer. The research instruments use the term urban farming, which could have potentially limited some of the results of the study, but there's value to this data for the whole state, and future research is encouraged to broaden the scope of these research questions to address local food system development outside of just this sector of farmers. Today we'll be discussing two overarching questions. The first is, how are small-scale diversified farmers served by Cooperative Extension? Under this objective, I'll be discussing the major needs of small-scale diversified farmers in the city, the perceptions of agricultural county agents who participated in the survey toward this type of farming, and what agents demonstrated they needed to properly serve this population. The second question, we'll be discussing the next steps to address the needs of both farmers and agents. So what do we mean by small farm sustainability? Through my research, I arrived at a local definition, which I'll go into a little bit more in detail later. The types of farms we'll be discussing today are small scale, fewer than 10 acres, diversified and sustainable farming operations that are located within the city limits. These farms engage with either the market, the community, or oftentimes both. Now you may be asking, well, what do you mean by sustainability or sustainable agriculture? Sustainability has become a bit of a buzzword in recent years. But today, we will be relying on what was presented in the 1990 Farm Bill, which states that sustainability is an integrated system of plant and animal production practices that will satisfy human food and fiber needs, enhance environmental quality in the natural resource base, make the most efficient use of non-renewable and on-farm resources, and integrate natural biological cycles and controls, sustain the economic viability of on-farm operations, and enhance the quality of life for farmers and society. Hopefully this definition provides a framework for sustainability moving forward today. The purpose of this project was twofold. First, we wanted to determine the context and needs of small-scale diversified farms in the Northwest and Central Arkansas regions. Then we wanted to compare this data to Arkansas Agricultural County Agents' awareness and perceptions of these types of farms in their counties. These interviews were conducted in the fall of 2018 and were conducted with small-scale diversified farmers in Northwest and Central Arkansas. Part one today will be looking at the interview data and part 2 will be looking at the survey data. The research questions that guided the interview portion of the study included, what is the context of small-scale, diversified, or urban farming in Arkansas? What research and resources would be most beneficial to Arkansas small-scale, diversified farmers? And how can cooperative extension serve these farmers regarding resources, training, and technical assistance? So what is small-scale diversified farming in Arkansas? Originally, we looked at just farms that engaged with the market, but as I progressed through the interviews, I realized that small-scale diversified farming in our state is really deeply integrated within the nonprofit sector. While many of these farms are for-profit, most maintain some connection with the community either through educational programs, donation to food pantries, or even just interacting with customers at the farmers market. While market access is essential for the business model, it is not always the only focus of these operations. Most of the farmers that I interviewed in this study indicated some use of sustainable practices, organic type farming, or certified naturally grown practices. And if they didn't report complete use of these practices, they still demonstrated that they use some. So we added sustainability to the definition for small-scale diversified farming in Arkansas. So who are these farmers? Are they urban farmers? Most said yes, but primarily they considered themselves market gardeners, urban growers, local producers, or local farmers. They tended to view urban farming as a secondary or tertiary part of their identity. Since these farmers come from diverse and often non-traditional agricultural backgrounds, it's important to understand how these farmers view themselves for extension to continue relationship building with this client population. We decided on the term small-scale diversified farmers for this study to best represent both the data and the farmers' reported identities. Every farmer interviewed reported differing needs based on years in operation, mission, market access, or practices used. Although the needs were highly individualized, we were able to identify some general needs or themes across interviews. These included market pricing and strategies for entering new markets, access to appropriate equipment through co-ops or food hubs, the maintenance of an operational workforce either through paid employees or volunteers. And every farm was very unique and had its own set of successes and challenges. So there is a need for farm-specific production practices appropriate for small-scale sustainable production in the state. I asked producers to describe their experiences with cooperative extension. Overall, they had very positive perceptions and were open to increased communication. They really enjoyed the helpfulness and friendliness that they experienced with extension, and they are open to increased interaction through on-farm trainings, workshops, farm visits, and other programs. Every farmer had used extensions-free soil testing services, but one key point is that some of these farmers were participating in extension-sponsored or partnered programs, but were unaware of extension's involvement. So it is important moving forward that extension and division faculty and staff increase advertising of their participation in current food system activities. While they had positive perceptions of the helpfulness and friendliness in services such as soil testing and food safety, they made a distinction that they did not feel extension was helpful enough for specific needs relating to small-scale sustainable farms. When they went to look for information for their operation, they generally went to outside sources first. Arkansas Extension to them did not have enough relevant research or resources for their operation. While they stated extension was helpful with certain resources, the underlying feeling was that they weren't helpful enough relating to their operation types. So moving forward, it's important for extension to increase their marketing of their involvement with current programs and services used by these farmers and their current involvement in local food system activities. After we increase the advertising of our current involvement, we can move to create future programming based on the needs identified today to target these demonstrated needs by the small-scale sustainable growers in the state. Switching now to the survey of agricultural county extension agents, which looked at the perceptions, awareness, and experiences with small-scale diversified farmers in the cities by agricultural county agents. 100 ag agents were sent the survey and 57 responded, yielding a 57% response rate. The objectives that guided this portion of the study were to describe agricultural agents' perceptions, knowledge, reported ability to advise and assist, and barriers and benefits to working with small-scale diversified urban farming in their counties. We also wanted to determine if responses from agents in more highly populated counties differed significantly from the responses of agents in more lower populated counties. Now we'll dive into some of the results from this part of the study. The participating agents reported low concentrations of small-scale, diversified, or urban farming in their counties, and they also reported infrequently interacting with these types of clients. When responding to questions looking at cooperative extension and small-scale diversified urban farming, most agents considered extension a valuable resource for these farmers, and over half indicated that they believed extension should provide more of these resources for small-scale diversified farming. Over 40% indicated that they believe more time should be set aside for agent training relating to this type of farming. Over 70% of participating agents identified themselves as either not knowledgeable at all or slightly knowledgeable about small-scale diversified urban farming. 40% of agents indicated that they were confident or very confident in their ability to advise and assist the clients. So there is a need to train county agents to increase their knowledge and confidence in assisting this group of clients so that cooperative extension can better serve all populations in the state. 25% of agents indicated they found it difficult to serve this particular client group, which further supports the notion that there is a training need for agents relating to this farming sector. However, 42% disagree that it was difficult, so there are current opportunities for increased collaborations between local food stakeholders and county extension agents. 50% of agents said that there is not enough need for small-scale diversified farming training and resources in their county, but more research is needed about local food activities as a whole and not just small-scale diversified farms in the city, which were labeled urban farms in the survey. 55% of agents disagreed that they didn't have enough time, so they indicated they had enough time to assist these clients, and almost 50% indicated they had enough time to seek training in this type of farming. When asked to identify any observable benefits of small-scale diversified farms in their counties, agents reported increased access to healthy food as the most cited benefit. And this has implications for every department in extension as it relates to community development, food security, hunger, and obesity in Arkansas. Over 30% of agents said that there were urban agricultural programs in place in their counties. However, almost 23% of agents indicated that clients were unaware of them. This is a potential barrier that highlights the marketing need by Extension's current involvement in local food system activities presented in Part 1. 53% of agents indicated that they had an interest in working with urban farmers. So this supports the outreach, education, and training need for both farmers and agents in this sector. When asked what types of small-scale diversified urban farming programs agents would be interested in working with for potential clients, the top two answers were on-site farm demonstrations and face-to-face communication. Farmers who were asked a similar question in the interviews indicated the same preference. So the types of trainings and programs preferred by agents align with the preferences of the small-scale diversified farmers in this study. However, agents may first need training on these types of practices before offering this type of client support. To understand the state-level differences between responses from agents in the more highly populated counties and those in the more lower populated counties, we used a Kruskal-Wallis one-way ANOVA to compare responses from the questionnaire to determine if any survey constructs were significantly different between populations in the state. As you can see, we divided the counties based on population level and categorized them by color. So looking at the key, you can see that the blue counties are the highest populated ones, followed by green, yellow, gray, and red. The statements that revealed significant differences between respondents are presented in the table. These questions included concepts such as the concentration of urban agriculture in your county, frequency of assisting clients of this type, time set aside for agent training for this sector, difficulty assisting these clients, programs in place in the county, and awareness of clients of these program types. There were also significant differences between population levels about where these producers sell their products, and this includes local restaurants, CSAs, grocery stores, and schools. As you can see in both tables, frequent significant differences occurred between the gray and blue counties, the green and gray counties, and the gray and blue counties, and red and blue counties. So this has implications because there are significant differences between the more higher populated counties and the lower populated counties about their perceptions towards small scale diversified farming and urban agriculture in the state. As we have seen, every farmer has different needs, and understanding these differences will be important for future programming as we can cater the needs to each county or region in the state and have specific programming types for the different farmers of this sector. Let's move now to discussing some overarching conclusions from this project. Agents who responded to the survey supported the definition of urban farming crafted in Part 1 as small scale, fewer than 10 acres, diversified and sustainable farming within the city limits that engages with the market, the community, or both. Here you can see the percentages of agreement by participating agents of the different concepts relating to this definition. That includes farming in and around urban areas, farming within city limits, and farming that involves the community. While agents reported low levels of sustainable practices used in their counties by these farmers, the data from Part 1 suggests that there are higher levels of these practices used by the farmers. This data, however, was only reported for the Northwest and Central Arkansas, or central regions of Arkansas. So moving forward, more research should address sustainable practices in local food system development and small-scale diversified farming in the state as a whole. When agents were asked about where small-scale diversified farmers in their counties sold their products, the top two answers aligned with the reported data from the interviews in Part 1. These included farmers markets and on-farm direct-to-consumer sales. This indicates that agents have a good understanding of potential markets for these types of clients. Reviewing the data about assisting small-scale diversified urban farmers, 74% of agents believe that Extension was a valuable resource for these farmers, and 62% agreed that Extension should provide more resources for these farmers. So there seems to be a gap between values and implementation because farmers and agents both believe that there should be more resources available. While some of this can be addressed through the marketing of current programming by Extension, the data presented in this webinar should guide future programming for small-scale diversified farmers in the state. Again, we see here this distinction between knowledge and confidence. If agents are better trained with the knowledge and resources to assist these types of farmers, we may observe an increase in confidence and a closure in the gap between values, beliefs, and practices related to small-scale diversified urban farming within Extension. There is a need to support the 25% of agents who found it difficult to assist this clientele. However, as previously stated, there is an opportunity for increased collaboration and learning with the 42% of agents who said they did not find it difficult to assist these farmers. There remains an overarching question after reviewing this data. How do we resolve the two stakeholder groups looking at this issue from two different perspectives? While 50% of agents who participated in this study said that there was not enough need for it in their counties, over 60% of these agents were from counties with populations of 50,000 or below. So this could be an indication of how the rurality of the state could affect small-scale diversified urban farming growth. However, this type of farming is happening in rural counties as well. Due to the predominantly rural nature of Arkansas, it was not surprising to find that urban farming was not a major phenomenon, even when we defined it as small-scale diversified farming in the city. So using the term urban agriculture potentially limited these results, and future studies are encouraged to investigate local and sustainable food system development as a whole without focusing on primarily rural or urban development. Even though agents reported low levels of sustainable practices in their counties, they also indicated there should be more resources provided, and farmers agree with this. So there remains opportunities for training agents about these types of farms to meet the demonstrated farmer need. Fundamentally, all farmers have problems that require solutions. Many of these problems, regardless of farming type, are the same. While the solutions may be different, they need to address similar needs. The black box here addresses the question of how are we addressing these problems? If everyone has a need, the missing link is how we are addressing these needs. If we see everyone as having a need requiring solutions, while those solutions may be different, cooperative extension provides research and resources for all. So incorporating training for agents about this type of farming will help the organization provide a broader reach and scope if we equip them with the appropriate resources. So why should you care about these results? Even though this study was designed around urban farming, people move to the rural areas of the state from urban settings outside of the state. These individuals often bring with them a set of values that fit with the ideas of an urban small-scale grower. They may seek out county agents for resources, often when they're wanting to increase their acreage or expand their current operation. So it's critical to understand the perceptions and awareness of agents who will be assisting these types of clients. As interest in local and alternative sustainable farming increases, we can expect increased requests for this type of assistance from this group of stakeholders. In Arkansas, these types of growers are often populated by people with non-agricultural backgrounds, and often they may not be aware of the resources that can be provided to them from Extension. And if they are aware of these resources, they may not see the organization as being appropriate to provide them with helpful resources for their operation. By understanding this and the perceptions of agents within Extension, we can understand these potential barriers and navigate future programming to better serve this growing population. So what do we need to provide this type of service to small-scale, diversified, and sustainable farmers? First, increase agent awareness and knowledge of the needs of these farmers and best practices to address those needs. There's also a need to increase agent capacity to connect farmers in both rural and urban settings to viable and sustainable markets. Agents that participated in the survey were given the option to respond to an open choice question about what would be beneficial for them to help them with this population. The types of training they wanted came in the form of online training, hands-on in-services, and fact sheets. And the desired content included, but wasn't limited to, IPM, marketing, and best practices for vegetable production. The Food Systems and Food Safety team, along with other Extension colleagues, are working to address some of the needs presented in the previous slides. These plans are part of an attempt to open the door to serving this particular client population. There's a plan to create an online agent training for small-scale diversified farming practices and local food system development. Additionally, all cooperative extension and division faculty and staff are encouraged to market their current involvement with local food system activities because the farmers interviewed in this study reported limited knowledge of this interaction with extension with local food systems. So we should start first by marketing what we currently offer, and moving forward, there can be new programming and training added to extension services to support this particular group of clients. We have discussed today what agents described as current needs to provide services to this sector and some potential solutions to addressing these needs. The goal for integrating this data in this webinar is to put into practice what both farmers and agents identified as needs. This initiative is both for cooperative extension and the division as a whole. So as I mentioned, there is a need for online training for local food systems adapted from North Carolina State, and this will be complemented by in-person educational workshops. The long-term impacts of these include equipping agents with resources to share back at the county level, and increased co-learning and knowledge share between local food system actors and extension professionals. Now I'll hand it over to Dr. Perez to talk about a food systems and food safety project going on now.
All right, thank you, Katie. That was a great presentation, lots of wonderful information, a lot of resources that we're really going through to figure out how to respond to some of these issues. One way that we're doing that, while there's a number of things happening with Extension to work towards serving this clientele, and many Extension faculty and staff are working on these issues, one project that we've recently been awarded through a USDA grant is a project known as the Share Grounds. This is a project to open 3 certified kitchens and distribution centers to help work with local food systems in rural communities and taking that and connecting those to urban centers to work with food processing, food aggregation, work with local farmers and food businesses to create food products that we can then sell around the state. So this is just a small part of working toward this larger mission of supporting local foods and working with county agents to serve this client population. Now we're hoping to open the Share Grounds project in January of 2020. The sites are currently under construction, equipment's being ordered and installed. This project is really set out to do several things. So one, we're taking existing county fairgrounds facilities in Marshall, McCrory, and Rison, which is in SEARCY County, Woodruff County, and Cleveland County, and outfitting those existing facilities with new equipment and resources to help farms and food businesses in the state. So we want to set up a system for produce aggregation, product and process development, so taking and creating either just packaged produce or going all the way into making value-added food products. We're also going to help with the regulatory assistance related to food safety and some of the other things that they have to do to make food products or to aggregate, hold, and distribute produce and other foods in the state. So what are the goals of our project? So first of all, we're really interested because of many of the things that have come up in Katie's research and a lot of the work that I've done for the past 10 years in increasing access to and consumption of local foods, which county agents mentioned in their feedback in the survey. We're wanting to do that by expanding capacity of an existing resource at county fairgrounds to aggregate, distribute, and create value-added products. We're also interested in supporting local farms. We're interested in developing and expanding opportunities to create value-added products or processed foods that are shelf-stable and can be distributed around the state and possibly even beyond. And then to foster the growth of regional food economies. And then, of course, improve access to food in these underserved communities and to move that food possibly into institutions like schools or hospitals or churches or other opportunities like that. So our three sites. The first is Cleveland County, which is in Risen. As you can see here in the top left photo, this is a picture of their county fairground. Their kitchen is along the wall that's in the back of that top right photo. And then several of us from the County Fair Association and local extension office are in this photo. And this is their, it's kind of a shed that covers their kitchen, but we're hoping to use this for a produce packing shed after we get this project underway. And then the bottom right corner is inside of that kitchen. The kitchen is currently under construction, equipment's being installed, and that's going to be a food processing center there as well. And then on the campus, there's been lots of activity going on in Cleveland County around homesteading and community garden and lots of things related to that. So local food systems development has really been thriving in that part of the state. And then in SEARCY County. SEARCY County up in Marshall near the Buffalo River has really been interested, and they've had a mission to work on developing a certified kitchen for several years, and it was just kind of serendipitous that we all connected and started working on this project. But they're wanting to do more food processing and potentially serve the tourist population that comes through to hike and bike and float the buffalo and all of those things. So in the top right, SEARCY County's been really great at getting some funding to support this work through a rural development grant. The bottom right, they had a lot of community members that have donated to help get the project off the ground. And then also in that picture is Dr. Renee Threlfall, who is a co-PI on this project and is helping us from the Food Innovation Center in Fayetteville. And will be providing the same kinds of services that they provide at Fayetteville through the Food Innovation Center through each of these sites. And then our third county is in Woodruff County, which is actually a 3-county fair where within SEARCY County, within Woodruff County, as you see in the top right photo, behind that wall was their existing fair kitchen. We've actually taken that wall out and extended it a little bit further to open up that kitchen space. We've done a lot of local marketing and promotion. As you can see on the bottom right, we went to their local mosquito fest to get the word out about using this site as a food processing center and food aggregation. There's farmers in the region that would like to use their facilities to do some produce packing as well. They have a thriving farmers market that's been successful, and they're really interested in taking those that are growing locally and bringing those into this kitchen to create food products and to expand those farms. Now at this site, it's the 3-county fair, so it's in Woodruff County, but it's also Cross County and Jackson County share their fair at this site. And on the slide that you see here, you can see where each of the counties are. So many of those that are on the call are probably familiar with that, or on the webinar are probably familiar with that. So SEARCY County, Woodruff County, and Cleveland County, which is a little bit cut off. Within about 75 miles of each of these sites, there is a pretty significant population of people that we can tap for purchasing the food products that come out of this. So in the Northwest, a population of about 250 within 75 miles. In the eastern part of the state, we've got 1.4 million people if we tap into that Memphis and West Memphis area as well. And then in Cleveland County, almost a 500,000 population if you pull in some of the larger cities within that region as well. And so this is really tying in that rural urban linkage and taking advantage of the cities to build opportunities for farms and food businesses. If you have questions about this, please go to our website, take a look around about the Sharegrounds project. If you need to get in touch with me, my contact's provided here. Angela Gardner is our program manager for this project and has really kind of been spearheading the success of this project. So I want to thank her for her work. And we are looking for new grant opportunities to continue to serve this client population, to work with county extension agents, and we will build on this work.